Action. Hi, Adam. How are you doing?
I'm really well. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for joining me on the Local Tourist
Oh,
podcast.
pleasure.
So we're going to be covering Wales. Let's see
Mhm.
the hats. Good stuff. So I thought I asked you because you're from hospitality, so you have that
Mhm.
eye for what's great to do locally, and you're a local. So it would be good to get your perspective on how to tourist like a local. So take it away.
Absolutely. Amazing. It sounds really good. I think I grew up in South Wales. I grew up in the sort of small valleys towns, and I moved to Cardiff as soon as I could, and then went to like I've been in Manchester for 8 years, and I've just recently moved back, and I didn't realize how much I've actually missed being here. It's such an incredible, like Cardiff's an incredible city. I think it's very underrated. So I think as we chat more about it, I'm going to become maybe a bit more passionate and a
Good.
bit more patriotic as we go along.
So, in what are the things that you think? So, first of all, what do you think is the perception of Cardiff that then leads you to believe that it's underrated compared to what you've noticed?
I think Cardiff is a city, like especially in terms of hospitality. I think a lot of people kind of put it down to kind of like that hen pie stag do kind of hotspot, which it has been for a long time. It's a huge city of students as well. Cardiff University is quite highly rated, and a lot of the nightlife is sort of geared towards students. So I think it's only been in the past maybe 5-6 years that the bars and restaurants of Cardiff have kind of really become a bit more independent and tailored towards the people that enjoy food and drink.
Mm-hmm.
For the longest time, it was mainly independents in Cardiff, and mainly maybe in the last few years, a lot of it's been more like chains, like bigger chains of
Commercialized.
yeah, it's become a bit more commercialized, but I hope that it keeps that kind of independent mentality, like creative mentality, because it's got so much more to offer. There's so many amazing people doing amazing things here that I think it's only a matter of time before people sort of realize what's going on. I mean, it's 2 hours from London on a train to Cardiff. Like, I
I
think
didn't
that's
even
kind of
realize that. Okay, because I drive everywhere, but yeah, 2 hours is
yeah.
not far.
Like there's some people that live in Cardiff that commute to London every day because you know how it is. You can live in London and still commute 2 hours to wherever you need to be in London. And it's relatively a lot cheaper to live in Cardiff than it is in London. So I think there's a lot of people with a lot of different wants moving here, and I think tailoring towards those people has really sort of progressed what we can offer as a city as well, which is quite nice.
So, in terms of the local area, where people live, how far out they may or may not be in Cardiff, what's that breakdown, and who does it really cater to? So, if people are considering a day trip, or if they're even coming from outside of the UK, what is it that they should look for, and where should they go, depending on who they are, or what they're looking for?
So Cardiff is still like quite a small city. I think there's kind of more happening on the outskirts now. Where I live in Canton and around here in Pontcanner especially, there's a lot more independent sort of like bars, restaurants, a lot more cafes. There's Hardlines, these guys, they're coffee roasteries around the corner from here. They're incredible. They're doing amazing things. But everything is still quite central. Like slap bang in the middle of Cardiff, you have Cardiff Castle and all the grounds that are around that, View Park, which is really beautiful. Cardiff Bay is, right on the water. It's half an hour walk or a 5-minute taxi ride away from the city. And then even not far from that, like maybe half an hour's drive, maybe a little bit further, you're in sort of the Brecon Beacons and you're in sort of the national parks, and that's kind of where a lot of the outdoor activity is. Or even if you go sort of west, you can drive for half an hour, 40 minutes, and you're in sort of, you're on the beach. It's not far at all.
So if you had one day to spend in Cardiff, how would you prioritize it? Where would you stay and what would you do?
I'd probably stay somewhere in Pontcanner, somewhere that's near kind of, it's maybe a 10-15 minute walk away from the city centre, but you're kind of amongst all the fields that connect back to the castle. So it kind of like tailors around. So you've got Butte Park, and it comes up to sort of, I can't remember the name of the fields now, Pontcanner Fields maybe. And that sort of walk first thing in the morning would be really good to do. Like walking into the town that way would be quite nice. If I had one day, what would I do? I think I would just explore. I would explore the castle. Castle's amazing. It's got so much history there. Like, never mind, you know, what it was originally used for, but even sort of during the Second World War, it was used to kind of shelter people. You know, it has got a longer history than that. In the city centre of Cardiff, there's so many things to see and do. A lot of food and drink related things that I'd kind of been to would be really good.
So what are the top places?
Top places, bars. I think you want to look at Dead Canary, Pennyroyal, Lab 22. Those kind of three are the bars I think kind of more nationally recognised and are kind of doing really special things. Hardlines, you've got Corner Coffee, a load of amazing coffee shops in Cardiff coming through. And wines as well. There's a few, like Nook, which is not far from here actually, is a really amazing restaurant that focus on natural wines, which that sort of trend is only just coming to Cardiff, which is really cool. But yeah, I'd probably go to Nook for dinner.
Is that like you have to reserve?
No, they don't take bookings, so it's kind of walk-in only, but it's kind of a really nice locals spot. I really enjoy going there. Or you've got Milkwood in Pontcanner, or Thomas if you want to go a little bit more high end as well. But if you're in Cardiff for one day, you have to do Caroline Street. Usually at the end of the night, you know, you've had beers, cocktails, wines, whatever. Caroline Street is also known as, it's known as Chippy Alley. And it's got two of maybe the oldest sort of like takeaway, like chippy places in Cardiff. Dorothy's, which is my personal favorite, has been there since the 50s, I believe. And Tony's, which has been there about the same time as well. I remember when first coming here, me and Lucy, my girlfriend, she was adamant she wasn't going to have one, but towards the end of the night, it's all you gravitate towards, and it's delicious. It's amazing. It's a bit of a Cardiff institution, and I think that shouldn't be missed.
What is it? Is it just for the fries or the chips? Because this is how I was when I first came here with Kebabs, and I'm like, never gonna happen. 5 years later, finally have it. Now I'll gladly have it in the daytime for lunch.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. It's everything from having that kind of stigma of being sort of an institution. I think kind of have a certain level of expectation. I think your perception of that expectation when it's sort of 2 a.m. is very different. It's amazing though. Like the banter from the guys that are behind the counter. The food itself is, you know, delicious. You know, it's not necessarily the healthiest, but when is healthy food ever the tastiest?
Exactly. So, okay, moving on to the cuisine then. What is the typical Welsh fare other than the lamb?
Yeah, so Welsh lamb's kind of up there. I think Welsh rarebit is kind of the stereotype food that a lot of people go to as posh cheese on toast. It is posh cheese on toast. But it's also more than that. It is, I swear. It's delicious. It's made with sort of like a roux that you add sort of a dark beer into as well. It's a really good hangover cure. Welsh is like really spicy, full of mustard, Welsh rarebit. I don't think you can get much better than that. Welsh cakes, delicious, kind of traditional. I didn't really call them Welsh cakes until I moved out of Wales, weirdly. I always knew them as bake stones because you had like a massive sort of iron plate. Like my grandma had one that she would just kind of like put on the stovetop, and it'd just be this hot plate.
Oh, so
that
it's
you'd
like how you make those traditional pancakes on the, okay.
Yeah, so it's that kind of like method. Really delicious. Lava bread is one traditional Welsh dish that I don't think many Welsh people would have tried even.
So I Googled it and it's not bread. What is it?
It's seaweed, it's lava seaweed, and the kind of traditional way of cooking it is you kind of put it in a pot and you cook it down for hours and hours and hours, and then you blitz it maybe into like some sort of paste, and then you'd have that as like a little like dip or spread.
So it's like an accompaniment. Okay.
Yeah. It's delicious. I've had it on a few occasions. Sometimes it's not great, but I've had it once or twice where it's been, pretty tasty. But it is an acquired taste. Very, very salty.
It'll be something I'll have to try.
Yeah,
What
for sure.
is that? So is that something that you can commonly find throughout the city or even throughout the country if people do
Maybe not
look out
much.
for it?
I think it's more common on the coasts. I think Wales has a lot of really amazing seafood around the coast. Like Menai mussels in the north are incredible. Pembrokeshire, sort of like shrimp and sort of shellfish, are really, really good as well. So I think it's more common around there near the coast. I think you maybe struggle to find it in Cardiff or close to the border, but it's definitely worth trying. If you're near the seaside and you can find some, like don't pass up the opportunity. Give it a go.
Okay. Sure. Okay. And then, so you mentioned that you would stay sort of just outside the city center, and then you could go to Cardiff Bay, etc. So tell me more about that area. What's there to do? What's there to see? Can you easily do it in one day trip?
You could probably do Cardiff in a day, I think. Or like do like a day and an overnight stay would be really good. Cardiff Bay, like I said, is really, really close as well. Cardiff Bay has become a bit more commercialized, but you go there for it's kind of to be close to the sea and to kind of be part. There's like the Welsh government buildings, there's the Eisteddfod building. It's like beautiful architecture. There's sort of galleries down there, that sort of thing, a little bit more artistic culture there, and some water sports as well. Like I saw people paddleboarding through, so there's a river that flows through Cardiff city centre, the Taff, and I didn't realise people paddleboarded down there until the other day. I was walking past and people were just like rowing down, going down to Cardiff Bay. You can even get a water bus or a water taxi, like a little boat from the city centre down to the bay, which is quite a nice little ride. Okay. Some people use it to commute as well, which is quite, I always found that like could be a really cool way to commute to work, just get in a boat.
Yeah, that's one of the things I saw over in Australia. So if you didn't live in Sydney, you just had to get the ferry back and forth. And I'm just like, this is the best part of the day. It would actually make the commute quite nice. What other outdoor activities do they tend to have, or would you recommend in the area?
In the area, so like I said, Brecon Beacons are less than an hour's drive away. I highly recommend going hiking. One of the highest mountains in Wales is there, Penavon, which I climbed a couple of years ago with my dad, and it was hilarious. We decided not to take the traditional route, which is kind of like a few hours, but it's it's not as steep. Most people can do it, and we were like, oh, screw that, we're gonna do it in an hour. We'll take the steepest route and we'll get it done and dusted. By the end of it, I was on my hands and knees crawling up the side of this mountain, and my dad was cigarette in hand, smoking away, just like walking past me, just not even
That's hilarious.
even like when you get to the center of the Brecon Beacons, I know you can do like, there's a few spa hotels, you can do sort of a few lodge trips up there, but there's certain nights like right in the center of the Brecon Beacons where there's so little light pollution that on certain nights you can see the northern lights from there, which
really?
I really love to do. I think it looks amazing. Like camping out there would be such a treat.
Do you know of any venues that do that sort of stargazing, glamping sort of thing that might be in the area? Might have to look it up and
Yeah, I might have to look it up. I remember looking a few months ago. There's definitely some towards the north end of the Brecon Beacons, sort of closer to like the English border, like near Hay-on-Wye and those kinds of places. Hay-on-Wye, actually, if you've not been, highly recommended. It's a little Welsh town on the border that has the Hay Festival once a year, like known as the Town of Books, and it has like a big literature festival once a year, which is also amazing.
Are there any, well, maybe not this year, but are there usually any specific festivals like Christmas festivals or anything else, that any events that people should look out for if they're planning their trip throughout the year?
Yeah, for sure. I'm not sure if it's still running actually, but the Green Man Festival was always really good. Sort of like a little music festival in South Wales, which was really good. Or if you're around for New Year, I'm not sure what day it's on, but in Pembrokeshire they have a Cowl festival once a year. So like Welsh Cowl is like a traditional like broth, usually made with lamb, and you'll have sort of everyone coming out with their cowls, and it's kind of like competition, so bragging rights who has the best sort of little Welsh bowl of broth.
So do they like pre-register and get all ready for this?
Yeah,
like it's a...
I assume so.
Yes.
But like I remember going when I was really young, and there was sort of a lot of old sort of Welsh housewives that have been perfecting their recipe for years and years and years. But it's tasty. That is a festival, and then it's right near the coast, and I know around the year there's a lot of like surfing that happens, sort of in Pembrokeshire especially.
Even when it's this cold, seriously?
Yeah, people do all sorts of stuff, like on the south coast, and probably all around Wales as well.
Nice.
Where so Boxing Day, I think it is, where you just kind of like all run into the sea together.
Oh,
yeah. And then shake it off afterwards. Have some whiskey to help it.
Whiskey.
Welsh
what
whiskey.
about I was going to say the Welsh whiskies. That segments nicely into that. Segues even. So tell us, as an expert in the drink side of things, what does Wales have to offer?
Spirits wise, I think Penderyn has been leading the way with whiskey for a long time. There's a lot of other little sort of Welsh whiskey companies cropping up as well. But you look back, maybe even just before the First World War, there was, I think maybe another 8 or 10 Welsh whiskey distilleries that have since gone, which is a real shame. Like, I think it'd be amazing to try and refine some of those like old distillery bottles. Like I'm sure there's like some 100-year-old Welsh whiskies that you can find on like auction sites and stuff. I'd like to see that sort of make a comeback. Penderyn's really good. Gins, like wouldn't be talking about spirits without talking about gins right now. Aberfoils is definitely the most common Welsh sort of gin distillery. Of Brecon Gin, and Dyfi is an incredible little gin distillery near Snowdonia up in North Wales. It's really good.
Yeah, that's the one I was trying to look for. It was a little bit difficult, but I did manage to get my hands on one of these. I was trying to go a little festive, so I got a gingerbread gin liqueur. I think it'll be good with ice cream.
Definitely.
For those with a sweet tooth. What would be some ways that you could serve this that would work?
The gingerbread. It's a gin liqueur, right? So it's quite sweet.
Yeah.
I think so. Like over ice cream, that'd be really, really delicious. Or just throw it in your coffee.
Like caffè corretto. Yeah, that's true. Good. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try it. What about? Let's see. Would you be up for teaching us a few Welsh phrases? Would they appreciate that? Yes.
Yeah, I think so. I think one of the things that I think they try and teach the Welsh language in schools all over Wales, and I'm from a small town that wasn't particularly Welsh speaking. You kind of get more Welsh speakers as you go sort of further out to the coast and stuff. But yeah, can do like a few words that I know.
Well, I just know from spending so much time in Wales that just being able to read some of the letters or sounds is probably where to start.
I think that's the main thing. Yeah, there's a few like really weird sort of Welsh sounds that it's such a complex language. I think that's going to be my goal for the next year, is to become more familiar with the Welsh language, for sure.
So I spent most of my time in North Wales, so it's very English. Not very, but there's a definite influence. So do they not try to do a bit more of a bilingual thing? So like if you walk into a store or something, they start in Welsh and then go to English? Do you see a lot of that?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of, I know there's a huge push to sort of preserve the Welsh language. And I know in a lot of places, like all the signs will have, dual, be bilingual, and a lot of supermarkets will as well, that kind of thing. Certain Welsh businesses, if you call them on the phone, they'll greet you in Welsh and then do it again in English. It can be confusing, but I really do appreciate that people are trying to preserve the language.
So how would you say, like, just hello or good morning or some sort of greeting?
So good morning would be Borada. So
Borada.
Borada.
Yeah.
How are you? Shwmae.
Shwmae. Shwmae. Okay.
Shwmae. How are you? Or kind of, what's up kind of thing.
What's happening?
Yeah. Yakida. Surely you've come across that before.
Wait, say it slowly.
Yakida.
Yakida.
Which is like cheers, essentially.
Okay.
Like, cheers to good health. Diolch is thanks.
No. What is it again?
Diolch.
Diolch.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. Wait, how do you spell that one?
Diolch.
Okay, diolch. Okay, I'm seeing
Right.
it. Okay, got it. Diolch.
Yeah.
Any others? Or how do you ask for a beer or a drink or whatever?
That's out of my realm.
Okay.
Please is Ysgwelwch yn dda. That's please. And then thank you, diolch, and then croeso would be welcome.
Oh yeah, that you see on signs all over the place.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I know that one. What else? I mean, I think that covers the basics. Unless there's anything else that you think should be known.
Can I have a pint of beer, please? Is ala igeo pint o gwrw ysgwelwch yn dda.
Oh my God. Okay, slowly. Let me see if I can get this.
Okay. Ala igeo.
Ala igeo.
Gael.
Al geo.
Ala igeo.
Ala igeo.
Pint.
Pint.
O gwrw.
O guru.
Ysgwelwch yn dda.
O squala kana.
Yeah, cool.
And that's asking for a pint.
Can I have a beer, please?
Yeah, I'll just be like.
Line it up.
Oh dear. Right, so instead of asking for that, let's see now. I'm gonna try. So I've got the ice cream.
Cool. I did get some Welsh cakes too.
There we go. I could not find them. I think there's some sort of embargo or a monopoly over here with Eccles and Chorley cakes. So I don't think they allow the sale of any competition. Right. So I think this would be a good. Oh, it's actually very cinnamony. I guess what is gingerbread?
Right, pumpkin spice, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's actually interesting. Hold on. Oh dear. I've literally only had 2 alcoholic drinks this entire year.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is it second or third?
No, so this is technically my 3rd, if you can even count it. It's a half. Let's see.
Amazing. Congratulations. I know. So.
Oh, it wasn't like a goal. It just happened. Just really antisocial. The pandemic made it worse. Oh, that's actually really good. This is going to be good as an affogato. Okay.
Mm.
or a Welsh version of it. It's not as sweet as I expected. It does have a bit more spice to it. That's good.
Yeah,
Ooh. Okay, I'm just gonna eat this.
looks pretty tasty.
Yeah, this is gonna be good. A good Christmas dessert.
Mhm.
Definitely works.
Another sort of like traditional Welsh like bake would be barrabrith, which is like a fruit cake bread, essentially, where
Is
you
it
get
more
sort of,
bread than cake, or is it just like a?
you kind of treat it as I would treat it as bread, kind of.
Okay. So is it more like panettone style?
Not as no, not
Oh.
quite. But it's kind of baked as a loaf with raisins and like tea soaked raisins and stuff. And then you kind of have it as like with butter on the side. So
Nice.
kind of eat it like that.
So you're supposed to have it warmed up with butter, or?
You can have it warm or cold, whatever you want.
And how are you supposed to eat these Welsh cakes that you have?
Just with a brew. That's kind of like the snack. You got people coming around, put the kettle on, get the Welsh cakes out.
Okay, so is that like a staple? You're supposed to just have them in the house at all times?
I tend to anyway.
So what about, so now we've learned a little bit of Welsh
Mm-hmm.
and had a snack. What are the Welsh stereotypes, and are they true or not?
I mean, the sheep thing isn't true in my experience, but let's not go there.
I mean, I have seen a lot of them, but
Oh yeah,
they decorate the landscape nicely, so to speak.
Another one is that every Welsh person can sing.
Oh, okay. So they can't?
Like the male voice. I can't sing. I like to think that I can, but I definitely can't. That being said, I was in a choir when I was younger.
Okay.
But I wasn't very good, so I didn't last very long. I think, the male voice choirs and kind of that sort of part of the Welsh culture has kind of inspired that stereotype. What else is there? I think I always remember, like, you know, when people do these surveys and have like lists of sort of different accents and things, people always kind of rate the Welsh accent as kind of really unassuming and aggressive and soft, and to the point where it's almost like, I think there can be like a bit of a stereotype that the Welsh accent sounds quite stupid.
Well, I think it's because it varies so much. I mean, you have like the, I guess, more posh sounding or more neutral sounding in the north, and then it goes, it changes, like Gavin and Stacey style.
Yeah, which has done some amazing things for stereotypes in Wales. There's one stereotype in that show, actually, which I didn't realize, was that Welsh people just eat omelettes as like a thing. There's like a scene in almost every episode which is like, I'll make you an omelette. I didn't realize that was a thing until Gavin and Stacey, but then the more people I ask about it, the more like,
I guess it's quick and easy. I don't know.
But I'm not sure if it's like cause or effect. Like, I'm not sure if the show is kind of just like forced it. Where is it set? Barry Island. That's not too far from here, actually. It's kind of somewhere I would go as a kid to, like, on a like a sunny day. We just go to Barry Island and do this sort of like little theme park that they had there.
Oh, so is that like a nice version of Blackpool, but for Wales? No offense to anyone from Blackpool.
It's not. It's not as, I'd say Blackpool can be perceived as glamorous, where I don't think Barry would ever be perceived as anything other than a small seaside town with a log flume. I love it though. Like, I have so many amazing memories of being there as a kid. I need to revisit it now that I'm a bit older, for sure.
What about a little farther out? Because obviously we have there are some heavy duty chefs making waves out of Wales. Is there anywhere that would be worth that extra 2-3 hours trip out, or even for some of the castles?
Yeah.
that you would suggest to, because I think with the UK domestic market as well, but some international tend to plot a few different places on the map, and sometimes it's good to know how to plan that out so they can cover as much of the UK as they can. So where would you recommend, to visit before or after, and maybe do different overnights?
So I think it'd be really good, like you mentioned, kind of sort of heavyweight chefs and kind of the big restaurants in Wales. Anesir in Machynlleth would be definitely up there. I went there this year for my birthday to eat, and it was incredible.
Oh my God.
A very meat and fat forward meal.
That's one way to put it.
Yeah. It's amazing though. And I think that would be around that area would be a really good base, because you have like Snowdonia, like on the doorstep. You've got Cardiff Bay on the doorstep. Then you've got sort of all the beautiful parts of the north coast as well. You've got Anglesey, not too far away. You could even do that as kind of part of the like coast trip. So even if you came to like, I don't know, Manchester, Liverpool, Chester, you could kind of drive across the north, visit all that sort of area, and then maybe come down to Pembrokeshire and then follow that back around to Cardiff and then on to like Bristol or London or done that way. Could be a really nice way of doing it. Yeah, there's so many amazing things to see and do, like especially around Anglesey as well. There's a lot of sort of wild nature reserves. Like there's quite a lot of sort of like bird life, right? And there's Puffin Island just off the coast of Anglesey, where there's like once a year we'll have like hundreds, if not thousands, of puffins. Sort of
Is that where that is? Okay, yeah.
Just off the coast of Anglesey, and you can sort of like do boat trips around it. And like when there's sort of the like hatching season, and you have like all these baby pufflings. Like I'm not sure you're enough to actually see them, but I've always wanted to do that. I think that'd be a really cool little.
I wonder what time of year that is. It's probably a Googleable thing. I'll have to put it in the list.
Maybe September, November time. I'm not sure though. Maybe around now. Who knows?
Yeah, and then definitely on the way down, stop in Loop, obviously, for the fighter jets. They're probably still running now as well, even during the pandemic.
Yeah, definitely. And in North Wales, you've got the world's fastest. Is it the fastest zip line in Europe?
Yeah, so Zip World, they have 3, last time I checked, they have 3 sites. So you've got the one where you basically go head first. That's the one that you go super fast all the way down. I think you can reach over 100 miles an hour, I think it is, depending on how heavy you are. But I know when I went, I asked for them to put weights because I was like, no, I want to go faster. And they're like, no, you can't do that. So I was like trailing behind other people. So irritating. But yeah, you go, it's like as close as you can get to just like flying without being in an aircraft. And then one of the other sites that they have in Snowdonia is the one that goes over the caves. So you have 3 zip lines, but you're kind of like, it's like you're sat on a little swing, obviously fastened in properly. But you basically do a few little walks up the mountain, and then it's like you're taking 3 rides down, and then you get to see the views. I think it was the second one that's you're like, oh, it's just some rocks, and then as you get farther, you suddenly see the big cave with the water. So that's don't be looking up, you need to look down. So that's a good one. And then they have their third site, which is more different activities. And I think they were going to build one in Liverpool, but I think it's been delayed or changed. But the zip line thing is definitely one to book in advance. I think the only time they don't do it is when it's raining or extremely windy, obviously. Yeah.
That'd be pretty cool to do though.
What else do you think is, noteworthy for anyone maybe that's from outside of the UK if they are planning a trip to Wales? Because one of the things I realized working in hospitality and speaking to a lot of hotel owners, independents, is that they get a lot of guests that then go, oh, I wish I knew that this was here, and then I would have stayed longer, or whatever it is. So is there anything that, tourist traps that people should avoid and instead do something else?
Tourist traps, I think Barry Island is definitely one of those. I think it's probably picked up a lot of tourism from Gavin and Stacey. I don't think it's, unless like you're the biggest fan of the show, I don't think it's that great. Sorry.
Okay.
I think there are far better beaches in Wales that you could visit, all around Pembrokeshire. Like some of those beaches, especially so like the further sort of west you go, some of those beaches have been, you know, rated as some of the best beaches in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely prioritize those over like Porthcawl or Barry, which is both on the south. You've got the Gower Peninsula on the south, which is not too far either from here, but I would highly recommend that as a sort of a beach place to go, and a place.
What about like the best for the, you know, the budding photographers out there that want the best views if they're willing to make a bit of a hike?
I mean, top of Snowdon would be incredible. Brecon Beacons again, even around Snowdonia, not necessarily like Snowdon itself, but there's so many amazing parts around it that are relatively unexplored for tourists. Like it's a lot of kind of things that people wouldn't necessarily wander into because they kind of do the mountain, climb it, get to the top, or take the train up to the top, kind of take those photos and come back down. But there's so many waterfalls and sort of natural spots that are just beautiful, and I think it's worth maybe taking that extra day to kind of explore its surroundings rather than just doing the mountain itself.
Mm-hmm. I think I'll have a look at some of those spots and list them for people so that they can have a look.
Cool.
Are there any standout hotels or anything like that you can think of that are just like an experience in itself, especially now when maybe it's not as easy to move around between venues?
Have you been to Vyrnwy?
Yes.
Like,
oh yes, of course. It's a nice wedding venue with the lake as well.
Nice little sort of beautiful spot. So that lake was actually made, I think it's that lake that was made for to send tap water or drinking water to Liverpool.
Ah, that's interesting. I wouldn't be surprised.
A reservoir that was built, and I'm sure they had to flood a Welsh village to make it. I'm sure that's the same. I'm sure I remember hearing the story as a kid that there was like a Welsh village that was flooded for a reservoir, and I'm sure it's that lake. I'm pretty sure.
We'll look it up. That's interesting. It's a really nice drive. I remember, randomly stopping. I didn't realize where I was because there's no phone signal. And I was just like, I'm just going to stop here. And then eventually I found the hotel, found my way, and got some signal. But it's just going all around it. Beautiful, beautiful landscapes.
Yeah, there's Nant D, which is a little spa lodge in the Brecon Beacons as well, which is great, like right on the doorstep of the Brecon Beacons. Really, really beautiful. But again, we need to find some of these lodges. I wish I remembered the names of some of them that were around there, like the sort of little self-isolated lodges in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, those are the ones. We'll get a list together for the listeners. What's the current situation with the lockdown? Is there a lot of are other Welsh people still making an effort to staycation, or what's the general feel?
I think so. I think there are so many places to visit in such a small country that, you know, we did some of that when I was a kid, but we didn't scratch the surface really. And I think there are a lot of people discovering now what is actually here. Like the amount of vineyards that are cropping up in Wales, like some amazing Welsh wines coming through. Ancra Hill Estate, I think, is one on the Wye Valley, which is like natural biodynamic. And then there's like White House, I think, in Pembrokeshire as well, which is really good. The lockdown situation, I think it's it is what it is. Like at the minute, we're going through the 2-week sort of fire break, which is fine. It means that I get 2 weeks off, which is great. After having 4 months off, I'm basically semi-retired at this point.
It's a good way to look at it. I think there's a lot of people in the same boat.
Yeah, I think kind of it is tough, but you gotta make the most of the time. I think, especially and after working in hospitality as well, there's you don't get much rest. So I think we should see this as kind of a small blessing to take time to rest and spend some time with people that you can, which has been really good. But yeah, tourism wise, I think it will bring a lot of tourism to Wales, I think, which is really important. I think there are a lot of people from sort of like central England, or a lot of people that are on the border of England that might not have even crossed and come over and find what is all out here, because it is a lot of empty space for the most part.
Yeah.
It is a lot of sort of mountains and valleys, and which is beautiful to drive around in. But you can get across the country within a few hours, so I think it's worth exploring.
And is it easy to get around if you don't have a car? Because that's the only other thing, are the transport links.
It can be tough. As someone who doesn't drive, I found it really difficult. There's, some, like I think one of the fastest ways to get from Cardiff to Aberystwyth, I think, by train, I think you may even have to go to like up to Shrewsbury and then across, like on trains. So it can be, there's no like that, there's not many train lines that go through the center of Wales. So you kind of have to go around a little bit. So the trains can be a little bit more difficult. If you're staying south or staying north, you're probably fine. It's just kind of central, and if you want to get from anywhere from the border to the coast, that can be a little
So
bit.
basically it's great for road trips.
Amazing for road trips.
There we go. All about the road trips. What about, are there, so with the whole pandemic situation, have you noticed any venues or anyone doing anything special where you can have that hospitality experience at home? I know Gareth Ward is doing it for his restaurant, where you can get the sort of sample box, and if you have the skills, be able to put together and try to replicate what he does. But are there any others that you've noticed, or any shout outs that are worth mentioning for having a
Definitely. There's a few bars that are kind of doing some amazing bottled cocktails for you to be able to have at home. Pennyroyal Lab 22 are doing some amazing stuff with that. In Cardiff. I think seeing the businesses adapt, like where I'm working at the minute, La Pantera, it's like a backstreet Mexican cantina. It's been they opened just before the pandemic hit.
Oof.
They've had to adapt to every environment. So they've gone from being just on like a top floor of a building to taking over the entire space and having to like do takeaway for the most part. And that's proved really popular, like businesses adapting to that kind of thing. There's Milkwood, which have just completely flipped to doing sort of takeaway stuff. There's a lot of beer bars, a lot of pubs that are doing kind of growler bottles for people to take draft beer away. But in terms of sort of like at home lunch, like Gareth Ward's doing, like that's incredible. I've not seen much of that in Cardiff yet.
Okay.
Maybe if it goes on a bit further.
Yeah, I think so. I think, I think especially for Christmas, if it's, a little something special you can do, even if it's just for Christmas. I hope others follow in his footsteps. But yeah, if you think of any others or find out of any others, then let us know.
Will do, for sure. I'll have to think about that.
Any final thoughts on Wales, on how to tourist like a local?
Tourist like a local. I think it's really, think it's a really exciting time for Wales. I think there's a lot of people looking at Wales as a bit more of an unexplored country, but not just for its kind of, you know, natural beauty spots, national parks, for, you know, all the beaches and stuff and kind of physical locations, but more of the culture as well. I think the Welsh culture has never been truly defined, and I think that's something really exciting that people are going to want to come and find and explore and see what is happening here. I said Cardiff is growing. There's so much happening here, and I think it's just going to move out further into the country, and people are going to start really pushing themselves and pushing what they're doing for Wales as a country rather than just as a business. I think it's really important.
Yeah, that is exciting. I think from the time I've spent, I've always found no matter where you go in Wales, everyone is just so welcoming. And it's like they don't shy away from the fact that, you know, there are tourists there. They you know, encourage it, which is always really nice. Even if they don't have a lot throughout the year, a lot of, especially in the north, they're used to only really opening from March or whenever Easter is up until maybe September, October, and then they're used to just having the rest off. Not that it's not a good time to visit, it's just that's not when people tend to think of, oh, let's go to Wales, because they're normally going, you know, to get some winter sun or whatever it is. So I hope people do look to it, at least after the lockdown, as an option, especially throughout the winter.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's really exciting.
Good stuff. Well, thank you very much for your time. I know we covered quite a bit, so I'm going to try to get all the information together for everybody that might look up a few things, especially when it comes to maybe ordering some gin or some Welsh whiskey or even the natural wines online and have them at home. I know it's been, it was really difficult for me to source anything Welsh when it's like an hour away by car. So I think if we can support our neighbors over here in the UK, that would be good. So I'll put that together. And yeah, thank you very much, Adam.
Pleasure. Thanks so much.